All right, hey everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Dad Level Podcast. We were going to have Alex with us, but he had some stuff come up, and I brought my sister on. She's a mom and geek and nerdy just like us. So
Yes.
today we want to kind of give a little bit of intros about ourselves, and then talk about the Arctic freeze and how we handled everything over the last week, almost 5 days of cold temperatures here in Texas. So I will, since my sister's joining, we'll let her go and introduce herself and talk about her kids and go from there.
All right. My name is Ember. Nice to meet everybody. My dog Aerith is over here wanting my attention as I'm trying to talk to y'all. So that just gives you an idea of how much of a nerd I really am. I named my dog after Final Fantasy character. So I've got two kiddos. One's a teenager, one's a little, she's 6. Both of them are into games in their own way, the whole Minecraft, but my son's into Call of Duty and other things. So he's kind of advancing in the game area. But much like my brother, we were just kind of baptized in all things nerds, from comic books to video games to movies. So I didn't really have a choice, but become a nerd. So, but yeah, my brother asked if I could come on the show, and I was like, sure, I'd love to. So I'm here. I'm level hot mess mom though.
David?
Yeah, so you already gave away my name. I've got two kids, one who's a 13-year-old boy, the other one's a 7-year-old girl. They're both kind of into games. My son has taken off into a route of games that I've never really been much of, which is a lot of like strategy stuff, which is great. It's always interesting to hear him start yelling at the computer about how he's got heretics invading and corrupting his kingdoms, which is pretty funny to hear. And then of course, the daughter is just all about Minecraft and wanting to, run around and befriend puppies constantly, is constantly on the hunt for puppies and things and cats and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, starting off, right, I didn't necessarily have a lot of nerd stuff in my house. It was just kind of a thing that eventually developed over time, right? Just sort of little hints and things and running into people in school and just kind of being the oddball kid. And then that just kind of leads you to all of those fun lanes of discovering what Final Fantasy and all that is. But I didn't exactly have direct, influence with that. It was more of just something I always heard people talk about. So that's one thing I've had to teach myself, is to try and not talk about spoilers with people, because I'm so used to asking for spoilers from people, because I spent so long not really being able to experience a lot of stuff and just kind of getting it secondhand. But now I'm very well into the culture.
Yeah, Dave and I actually go way back. We first met in middle school. I believe it was my 8th grade year, right? And I think
Yep.
you were 7. Were you in 7th or were you in 6th? I don't remember how many age or the school years we were apart.
I believe it was 6, because it was in choir, and that poor teacher. I don't recall her name. I just remember that she was horrifically harassed by all of the dude bros in our choir class, which was odd to say, but that happened.
Oh yeah, I remember he'd be like, Ember, you make it interesting to come to school, because I don't know what color your hair is going to be when you come to school next. And I had a habit of dyeing my hair constantly. One time I dyed it black, and my brother freaked out and didn't even want to talk to me for like a week.
She's gone goth. No. No offense to anybody who's goth. It's just, it was funny at the time.
It's okay. It's a lifestyle now. It's not even a phase.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm Vince. I have a son. He's 6, Edward. Really good kid. I try to influence him as much as I can, introduce cartoons and movies and video games to him, but he tends to want to sometimes do his own thing, which is, that's kids, is their individuality. But let's see, I grew up with a unique home structure. Me and my sister did. my dad raised us and took care of us, and it was very interesting. We grew up in comic book shops and arcades and toy hunting and role playing, and it was just like the dream of every kid growing up. We our house was the place to hang out. Everybody would come over. I mean,
It was a
you
safe
could,
haven for all wayward children.
yeah. Even parents would come over.
Mhm.
We always welcome people over, and that's what I try to do now, as being a parent and with our friends and stuff. I want to, always have that welcoming place for people, whether they need it or they just need, counseling or help or whatever. Just things, just the good vibes. It's been something I like to do. But it was interesting, and it's different watching my son go through now the age of constant internet and everything instantly in your face, and the
Much like this dog.
the transition of you know um, you having to wait for stuff. That's like one of those things. It's like, when we grew up, we had to wait for like a new episode or a new video game to come out. Like, you couldn't just binge it. Like the whole season's out right now, so that whole instant gratification is um, one of the things that is going to be different growing up for our kids.
Definitely. I think a lot of the streaming services now are doing it. They're getting smart about it. Instead of releasing an entire series or season on, they're kind of going back to that. Tune in next week to see what happens in this show. Which it I've become spoiled with the whole binging. Like I binge watch animes. Like I'll intentionally wait for the entire season to come out and then just binge watch it. But I've noticed that there are some that are really popular right now that they're like, we're not going to release the entire season. You're going to have to tune in every week to see each episode. So they're getting smart about it. So hopefully our kids will start to kind of feel what that was like for us growing up, having to wait and be patient.
Yeah, it is definitely a struggle, right? And the funniest thing that I always run into with my kids is them coming and I appreciate them coming and asking me about questions about like their school stuff, about math and all that. And I just look at them and I go, I haven't had to do like this level of math that you're talking about in forever. I don't remember what these equations are, or I have a vague recollection of what cosine, sine, and tangent are, but I haven't had to use it in my daily life in so long. There's this fun thing that all of you kids actually have called the internet, where you could just go Google how to do this. It's like I'll sit there and sit down with my son and be like, okay, you need to find these angles. Well, I don't know how to do that. Here, let's go tap in some letters and form a sentence to ask a question in Google, and boom, here we go. Bam, there we go. Here's the equations. Let's read how to do it. Let's work it out, figure it out. It's just funny how even though they're constantly swimming in that atmosphere, there's still so much of it that they take for granted and just don't fully appreciate that, hey, literally anything that you have a question on or curious about, you have information at your fingertips that you can go out and look for. Just it's
Exactly.
it's funny and frustrating at the same time to deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
And back in the day when watching my brother play video games growing up, it was a luxury to have the walkthrough, the guides that you would have to go out and buy additional to kind of unlock everything, all the weapons and whatnot for a video game. And now it's all online. And still my son will be like, how do you do this? And I'm like, you got a phone? Just
who's
look
gonna
it
I
up.
know.
It's even better than that, right? Because we went through that stages of like, here's the game guides. Like I have a Majora's Mask guide that's falling apart from the amount of times that we used it. And then you went to like Game Facts, where you had to go and print out pages upon pages of like a walkthrough on an RPG. And now
Yeah.
it's even better. Now there's YouTube. You can literally just go in and watch someone else physically do what you have to do. It's like, okay, now you don't have to guess, what crevice of what thing that they're talking about. You can watch a guy stand in a spot and look up and be like, there it is. And then off they go and they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Edward with a couple games I played long time a little bit ago. Luigi's Mansion 3 and was it another one? can't remember the time, but that's all he does. He'll go on and watch YouTube about games that we just got, and then he'll be like, "Hey, Daddy, you can go do this, or you can do that," and then or he'll do that because he can't figure out what he's doing in the game. So at least he's got that going for him.
Yeah, right. So how did y'all's kids handle, what happened last week with the snow and ice? And I don't know, David, did you lose power last week at all?
No, we were really lucky for the entire duration. Like we didn't lose power. Our water pressure got kind of odd. Not it got, I would say, low, but it wasn't like non-functional. It was always there, but you could definitely tell there were some fluctuations in it, right? And then the only thing that we actually lost was Tuesday. Just our internet went completely out. But yeah, for the rest of the time, we were pretty well, handled. We had to go and pick up my father-in-law and bring him to the house because his apartment went out of power on like Sunday, and he called us up on Tuesday morning saying how he was just freezing. So we had to go and pick him up. So now we've got both my in-laws hanging out in the house with us on top of everything else. But I mean, yeah, other than that, the struggle of just not really being able to go anywhere because of all the ice on the roads and everything, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. So the kids handled the cabin fever pretty well.
I mean, I don't know how all of our kids are, but I know at least my kids, as long as they have that means, right, of something sitting in front of them that they can mess with, they can pretty well handle not, being around people, especially my son. My daughter would probably be a little tougher on her if she didn't have some form of entertainment to hold on to. But, Aiden, he can just sit in his room and screw around with stuff all day long without having to speak to anybody, and he'd be fine. But
Yeah. We're raising a generation of antisocial people. They don't want to talk face to face unless there's a phone or a camera in between. So yeah.
Or your phone, especially in the middle of emergency, and you're like, "I need my phone, buddy."
Yes.
yeah, or just walking through a parking lot or something, and it's like, get your face out of the phone. That car almost hit you. Like you almost walked right into this sign because you're too busy staring at the thing. It's like, put it down. It's not going anywhere. I promise. You might go somewhere though. So let's just avoid it for at least a little bit longer.
The game
at least until we get to the car.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting 4 days. I mean, we lost power about 6, and we had the rolling blackouts. Our lights were flickering. It was just too inconsistent. I couldn't work remotely at all. But just being out of power, it was cold. We hunkered down in the living room, put my son's mattresses down, so we just had something covered up with blankets, kept warm, and would go sit in the car to charge up our stuff. And luckily we have a gas line, but the sad thing is the stove is gas, but the oven requires the electric to start it.
Yeah, same here.
And the gas heater we have wasn't working right, so we turned that off because we don't want any explosion or something. But I think the biggest difficulty has been having the water turned off and then having our water pipes burst Friday.
And that was in the living room, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the living room and in the kitchen. So we got her uncle took a look at it. He's gonna try to find the parts to replace it, but right now we're out of water, so we're having to go between her aunts and her parents to do different things for water and things we need. But it is what it is. I mean, we don't normally have this kind of weird temperature here.
Yeah.
Having like 14-degree weather inside your house because you have an older house, no insulation. So it's like it's colder inside. Yeah, you see your breath inside.
That was kind of the turning point for us when I was like, okay, it's a little too cold in the home when I can see my breath. Over here on my end of Texas, we got about an inch worth of ice and then about 4 to 5 inches of snow. We ended up losing power Monday at 3 a.m. We didn't get it back until Tuesday 4 p.m. So we went well over the 36-hour with no power. So it
Yeah.
felt like, you know, us growing up, not having a whole bunch of money. Me and my brother went through some scenarios where we had to figure out how to entertain ourselves with no power. Usually where we grew up, it was hot. We didn't really have the issues of it being this cold, so we found ways to cool off in the home when power wasn't working. So a lot of that kind of kicked in for me, and just everything that our dad taught us growing up, because he's kind of a prepper. Yeah, he's the Sarah Connor of the family. So I was able to get our stove working. We would have been able to at least use our barbecue pit in the back because it's run off propane. But we found out the night I was going to try to bake something in there that we were out of propane. So that sucked. Yeah. So we ended up taking the kids over to my fiance's mom's house so they can at least stay warm because she still had power. But me and my fiance and our roommate, we stayed here with the animals. And I think we all fell asleep with like fully double clothes, like double pants, double shirts, jackets, and then like 2 layers of blankets. Because up here where we're at, we got down to like 1 degree. So it got really frigid outside. Luckily, we haven't had any water, our pipes or anything bursting, but I mean, we did go without power for quite a while, and it got really cold. But I mean, as far as the kids, I mean, they did okay. I mean, they just kind of were over at somebody else's house, still had power, still able to play. Girls played Minecraft. Logan was on his phone for the majority of it, but they had a lot of fun playing in it. I don't know if you guys actually got to get out and play in any of the snow that y'all may have had.
A
Yeah,
little bit.
we had a little. The snow was snow for about the first morning, and then after that, it just turned into a glacier on our front porch. That when we went to go take the trash out one day, Amber and I, but it almost turned into an America's Funniest Home Video moment of like her walking out, slipping and eating it, and then me walking right behind her and slipping and eating it. That almost happened. We were able to avoid it, and then after that, we kind of took a shovel and busted that thing up so that it would we'd be able to at least get out of the way. But yeah, I mean, this was the most the kids have actively actually wanted to go outside in a little while now. Yeah, they were having fun running around. I think the first words that came out of either of my children's mouths when they actually went outside was they went to the backyard and they pointed down and they're like, "Dad, there's frozen poop out here." I'm like, the dogs poop out there and it's cold. It's gonna freeze. I don't know why that shocks you. It's just don't throw it at each other, please.
Don't play with the frozen poopsicles.
Yes. No, because then it melts and then you've got poop hands. Just don't. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. No, Edward, I mean, he had some cabin fever a little bit. We went outside, Anna went outside with him, and I was doing stuff around the house trying to get things set up and everything. And he played a little bit, but there wasn't enough snow to really do a whole lot. I mean, I think whenever we were warming up in the car and charging up our stuff, he was grabbing the snow and ice off the top of my car and was like building it into snowballs and then throwing it at the house. But I think it was kind of hard for him a little bit because, we had no internet, so he couldn't call. Well, we could make calls, but he couldn't call through or do things on the phones as much as he wanted to because when we had the blackout, they were also throttling our internet signal, and it was actually going across most of Houston. So luckily, when we had lights on, when it was like our turn to have lights, our phones was working. And then as soon as the lights go out, there goes our phones. So yeah. But there was a moment he got upset, and he's like, "Why is this going on? Why are we cold? Why is it cold outside? Why are the lights turned off?" Asking all the questions that everybody should be asking. Why?
Yeah.
But
really,
we it was a difficult. I mean, it was very much akin to like what we dealt with Harvey, except for it was frozen instead of water coming in your house and destroying your things and being without power for a while because you got to wait for the electric companies to come in with boats to put stuff back on. So
really.
Yeah, it was we tried to play a little bit of stuff with him, and he would cuddle around us, and but but it was hard, being the only kid here and not be able to contact anybody from the outside. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, the over here between our house and Brock's mom's house, there's a park that connects us. So my house is like the end of the park trail, and then over by her house is where it begins. And so it's just heavily wooded. I mean, there's uphills, downhills, there's creeks that run through it. And so I think it was Monday. No, I think it would have been Tuesday night because we had power back on and the kids came back. We actually went out at about 9 to 9:30 at night, walked through there, and it looked like it was 7 p.m. Like you could see everything. We're normally out there in the trail, it's pitch black, but because there was just so much ice everywhere, everything was lit up. And like we looked at our phones and saw it was like 10 something by the time we were heading back to the house. And the kids are like, why is it so bright outside? And I was like, well, it's because, the lights, reflecting off of the snow and everything, it just makes everything brighter. It's kind of, kind of like a mirror effect in a way. But they had a ball, it got to a point where I was like, okay, we're not going outside anymore. I need to thaw out.
Need feeling back in my limbs.
Yes. And, we don't have the proper, gloves to handle, touching ice and snow. Those cotton ones to keep you warm. So Alice kept grabbing snow like as we were heading out. So by the time we were heading back in, her hands were just beet red. And I was like, I told you not to touch the snow because you're gonna lose fingers. But there's an elementary school pretty close to where we live, and it's kind of up on a hill. And then as you drive to the school, you have to drive down. So there's these perfect rolling sled hills over there. So that's what we did is we went over there with like Tupperware lids, trying to see if we could get them to slide down. And while we were there, this family pulled up in a truck and they actually had real like snow sleds. And they let us borrow one. And of course, it's an Avengers one, which is pretty cool. But Gwen, our niece, she went down it, was having a blast. And then Alice got scared because it was so high up. And she finally was able to be brave enough to go down, and halfway down, she wiped out and just started rolling. So by the time she's at the bottom, she was just screaming. I was like, you did a good job. And she's like, ah. So, but then after that, she got brave. So the next day that we went to go do it, she was like, I want to go on that one. And she's like pointing to the highest one. I was like, okay, just don't cry when you wipe out again. But they had fun in it, which was good. I tried to get them to not be so cooped up and like go outside. Mom will make you hot cocoa when you come in.
Yeah, I think that was funny because when we first it was Monday or Tuesday when we came out to the car, and no, it was Tuesday, yeah. So we came out, I was at the car, had everyone in there, we had already warmed it up, we were charging stuff. Anna went to bring us hot cocoa, and then she went in to go, I asked her to go ahead and boil some, salt water to kind of pour on the concrete and stuff. So at least the walkway to the car was good. So she comes out there and she starts pouring, and I get out with her, and then of course she slips and I catch her. And I had actually done the same thing when I went inside to go get Edward, because walking through the snow to the car was fine, but walking through the concrete, it way the street, I mean, our driveway is, it froze a certain way that ice just puddled. So yeah.
I think Brock's car actually, because he usually parks really close to our garage. I think it was it yesterday, day before or something? He woke up, went outside, his car was like down the driveway.
Oh shit!
Car slide at night, and it would have been a real possibility because everything started melting, and then we would still dip down into freezing throughout the night. So all of that melted snow just instantly iced up.
Yeah.
So luckily, we didn't wake up with his car like in the middle of the road, but.
Yeah. Anything like that for you, David? Any of the other than the front porch with the sliding?
Yeah, other than the glacier that was at the front of the port. Yeah, I mean, again, we tried because of the fact that we were able to keep warm inside, right? Like we tried not to wander out too much. The kids, of course, were just like constantly in and out, in and out. Neither one of them really ate it, but there isn't really anything around us that is elevated or anything they can really play on. It was just more of like running out and being like, oh my God, look at how wide it is out here. It's so crazy. And then running back inside. And then at one point, Aiden, we had him go take the trash out, handed him the trash bag, and he's like, all right. And he's barefoot, just walks right out. And we're like, what the hell are you doing? No, put on some shoes. He's like, I'm fine. Just walks out, goes around, throws it in, comes in, flips for like half a second, catches himself, and then walks in like, boy, you're gonna get just lacking so much sense, but it's fun,
like,
right?
wait,
All
I
right.
gotta go out there barefoot. Let me get my phone. I can record this.
Right? Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it was interesting that the I think the first thing I thought about was the fact that you talking about Harvey. It's like the last time we got snow was Harvey, right? And like it was a good blanket of snow that came in after that whole hurricane, and I think that was closer to around Christmas, if I remember right. So yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was just
videos of that.
The I think the toughest part for us, which wasn't really, I mean, was just hearing like everybody else talking about all the stuff they were going through, all the problems they were having, to the point where Amber's like, I can't do anything for anybody, so I need to do something. So she ended up like baking about 8 loaves of bread and like started texting everybody, do you need bread, do you need bread? And they're like, yeah. And I just looked at her, I was like, babe, how are you going to get it to them? You can't drive right now. She's like, I'll figure it out. It's like, okay, like, all right.
You're pitching.
Yeah, like,
didn't all the birds fly south for the winter?
Right. Well, that was the crazy thing. Like when the first morning, I looked out in the backyard and there was just a bird like flying around the sky. I'm like, oh, dude, what are you doing? Like, you should not be out there like this. Come on now. There should not be birds flying around in this weather. Come on, man. But yeah, it was funny because now that I think about it, of everyone in the house, the person who probably had the worst time of it was my wife. She just, but I mean, that's because she was staring at Facebook and listening to all the stuff that people were going through, and it was just eating her up, just wanting to, that's just her nature. She just wanted to like call everybody and just bring everybody here and just stack them on pallets somewhere in the house and do it that way. But yeah,
she's a very caring woman. That's one of the main things I love about her. Yeah, we actually, I don't know about you guys, but we have been infested with robins here in Fort Worth, to where it's kind of like the blackbirds that we see when fall hits and they're about to start migrating, and everyone's like, oh my God, look at all those crows. I'm like, first off, they're not crows. But that's how it is here with robins. I've never seen so many robins in my life, where they're just kind of swarming on top of the roofs because the roofs are warm over here. And I think somebody posted something about that on Facebook, that we've had a whole influx of robins just come in because of this cold weather. So it's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just been hard too, listening to everybody have problems. I mean, like Dad with his heater going out, and when James went to go get his daughter from his mom's because their power went out, his car got stuck in the street, and then Alex having to evacuate his home because of the carbon dioxide, because of the generator he had. Even it being so far away from his home, it was still
getting in.
Yeah. So, and then most of the people on our street had pipes burst here.
Yeah, we had one at our work happen where it was Friday, and they're like, oh, can't use the toilets. And I was like, can I go home? I can wash my hands. I mean, ew.
Yeah, one of our friends, he was posting pictures from his work where a pipe had burst in their office and had just flooded their entire office space. Like they had, thankfully there were just spare computers, but he just like showed us a picture of about 4 or 5 computers sitting on the ground that had about 2 or 3 inches of water in them. And I was like, oh man, that's not fun.
Oh man,
but he thankfully has the ability to kind of work from home, so he's all right in that. But yeah, they're not going to be able to get back in their office space for a good long while.
I heard that some of the grocery stores were actually, because they had to throw so much stuff out, they were letting people come and just take like bread and other things they were going to throw in the trash. I think I heard HEB did that. But unfortunately, we don't have an HEB here in Fort Worth. But I think that's, one of the things I have to say about Texas is we really do try to take care of, ourselves when something really bad happens. We come together as a community and we try to help each other out any way that we can. Most places will just throw that stuff away and be like, no, can't touch it. It's going to the dumpster. Yeah, and that's just a waste when there's so many people who need it. So it's good hearing that a lot of those stores were actually letting people come in and just take the milk, and bread, all kinds of stuff. So was y'all's doing that too?
As far as I know, yeah. I know that they were like one of the stores that was open during all this because Kroger's decided to shut their doors and weren't doing anything. I don't know. So,
Gotcha.
but there was a lot of, when we drove around, there was a lot of places that was it Wednesday when things were kind of a little warmer before we had that another freeze going into Thursday night. We drove around just to see what was open. Maybe we could grab some food somewhere.
Mhm.
And like not even like some of the gas stations were open. I mean, it was just no power.
Exactly. Same here.
Yeah, I think that was one of the craziest things to see was just the lines, right? Just like lines upon lines of things at gas stations, people just trying to get gas for their generators, or like fast food places, folks that didn't have power, didn't have a means to get food. So they just wanted a warm meal. So there was like an hour-long wait outside, the Whataburger, the Jack in the Box,
Especially
everywhere. It was crazy. I mean, in fairness, as much as I love Whataburger, a lot of the places, at least around here that we've been going to, are really slow on their service. So an hour-long wait is just kind of par for the course. Like, I don't know how much that was actually affected by the additional people there, but yeah, it was crazy just seeing all the lines and people hang out. But everybody that we heard about and that were out there and having to deal with it, everybody was being courteous, right? Everybody was in the understanding that we're all kind of in this crap together, right? So it's no use being an a-hole in the middle of all this nonsense, right? Like, you're in line, wait your turn, you'll get there, everything's gonna work out, kind of deal. But yeah, it was crazy week, crazy week.
Yeah, next week we're supposed to get thunderstorms over here. I'm just like, man, Texas is bipolar.
I mean, that's the way the weather works, right? It's like it's 20 degrees one day, and then by the end of the week we're in the 70s. It's like a 50-degree shift just from one crazy all the way up to the other.
Yeah.
And when we start getting closer to summer, that's when it'll be like 40 one day, and then it'll be 80, 90 degrees the next. Like our weather never knows what it wants to be at any given point. I worked with a guy at a previous job, and he came from New York, and he kept asking, he's like, man, when do y'all get cold weather? And it was 40 degrees out. I'm like, this is our cold weather. It's going to last for about 2 more days, then it'll be in the 80s, and you'll have to wait a couple more weeks, and then you'll see another week of winter, and then that'll be it. And he's like, man, this is crap, this ain't cold. He's like, he had like all these big fancy super heavy jackets that he had brought with him from New York. I'm like, dude, you might as well sell them, because you ain't ever gonna have to use them. If he's still in the city, he's probably upset with me at this point, because he probably could have used those jackets. But
one time.
Yeah. Oh man. My coworkers luckily were pretty understanding. So was my boss about everything going on. But yeah, it's funny because you can be 80s one day and then in the 40s, and then the next day it'll be like 110.
Yes.
Texas, it can't make up its mind about what it wants to do for its weather.
Definitely. And one of the things we thought about doing when the power was out was either breaking out some kind of board game, or we were doing D&D with everybody for a while before things kind of got crazy back in October. But they were like, why don't we break out the D&D stuff and figure out how to start role playing? And I was like, I'm cold. I just want to lay in my bed right now, bundled up. But that was something that we did think about doing, is just kind of going back old school and board games and having entertainment that way. So
that's what we're planning to do. Yeah, because
and then you're just like, no, it's cold.
Too cold. I want to be under this blanket. I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. So how is the families doing though, David? Like how did your family fare during all of this?
I mean, my parents lost power for a little bit. My sister and her family are living with them at the moment, so they were kind of dealing with that a little bit. But they got out with the baby and got some pictures out in the snow, and they had a good time about it. To my knowledge, they never had an issue with water, and the power was only out for kind of like what you guys had, right, for about a day or so, and then it came back, and they were all right. My brother and his wife, they eventually lost power, like right at the end. They didn't lose power almost through all of it. And then right when everything was done, I think Thursday was all of a sudden their power was gone. Like, really? They didn't like apparently 98% of people have their power back. And then that's the day y'all lose power. That doesn't make sense. But now like all of Pasadena and a bunch of other places are under boil water notices, right? So
We are.
they came down to us this weekend to bathe and get to feeling human again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was just, and yeah, they came in and had a good time. And my parents, though, they won't leave their house for anything if they can help it, right? They're very independent of themselves. Like if they're in trouble, they figure it out. So we didn't really hear a whole lot from them other than the minor updates of, hey, we don't have power right now. It's like, oh, okay, well, if you need something, let us know. We will. And a day later, hey, we got power back. It's like, okay.
I'm glad you're alive.
I guess y'all don't need anything. So cool. That's good. I mean, but that works. Like, and then like I said, we've got the in-laws with us right now, and we're just waiting for my father-in-law's water to kind of get back to being okay, and then he'll be able to go back to his house. But he has power as far as we know right now. So
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole boiling of the water thing. You know how dad is, and always like, you need to have those tablets to make your water drinkable, and shame on you for not being prepared, and blah blah blah. So when we got to that point where we had to like boil water to do anything, we always buy like bottled water, because we don't have good filters here, so I just don't drink any tap water, because born and raised in Houston, you just know not to do that. um so we were just using that to cook anything, and then obviously we had to go, it was probably about 2 days with the whole water boil thing. So when the water was safe for people to actually start taking showers again, I was like, all right, you in the shower, and then you get in the shower, y'all stink. Because little kids and the sticky hand, no, go take a shower. But we didn't even do the whole boiling of anything, just because boiling is not going to get rid of poop particles, because your water treatment plant has shut down, and they're just filtering out nasty water to you. So I was like, we'll just hold off on dishes and laundry until the water's safe.
Yeah,
So
we were using our own drinking bottled water and stuff. We bought a bunch of stuff beforehand, so that's what we've been using to clean our dishes and stuff like that. And just to make sure it's warm, we were boiling that.
yeah.
And while we're doing that, we would make tea and ramen and stuff if we wanted a quick snack, something warms up. So, but yeah, some of the cool things that we were doing was when it was raining, like on Wednesday, and I was like, I put my buckets out there to start refilling my water reserves for the bathroom, because
So you could flush.
yeah, I mean, that's cleaner than the water that we're going to be grabbing out of the faucet if we had water.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, 'cause it was murky. I don't know about y'all's, but up here, when they told us about the having to boil your water as it came out of the tap, it was murky, and I was like, not today. Nope.
and then our one of Anna's friends, she her stuff was all, it just smelled awful.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, I'm not using this.
Yeah, we me and my brother, I'm sure you too, David, Pasadena, we call it Stinkadena, because the water treatment plant that was over there. So we know.
Well, Stinkadena isn't just because of the water. It's also because, at least where we lived, right? And you guys lived even closer to it than me back in the day. There's that landfill, right? That was just perpetually over there. So, if the wind was blowing just right on the right day, you walk outside, just take a big deep breath and go, garbage. All right then.
Do y'all remember back when we were in high school? Uh, that one that was over there in between Pasadena and Houston that had the tire fire for like what, a month? And you could see it. You're just like, oh, yep, still going. I was like, oh my good. I don't even remember how that started. I think it was just a really hot summer. So
Yeah,
not only did you have that awful garbage heap smell, but then you had like that
the
burning.
rubber, yeah, the tar,
Yeah.
all that smell in the air. Yeah.
Good times.
Fun times.
Exactly. So, do y'all want to get into a theory on anything? I found a coworker at my job who's obsessed with Final Fantasy, and so
Okay.
we've been talking back and forth about theories on what's happening in the new remake. So I was just curious if y'all wanted to get into that on this episode, or maybe have that for another one. But
Okay. Well, so we'll do this. Any spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched or played all the way through of Final Fantasy VII Remake? Jump ahead a little bit. I don't know. I'd have to look and see where I'd have to put a little marker in, but yeah, go ahead, Sis.
okay, so I was telling him about me and Brock's theory on it, that this has to do with, a different or alternate reality. That, Sephiroth obviously knows that if he kills Aerith, that's his downfall. So he's somehow found a way to alter that from happening. So there's a couple things that happened in the game that made me and him feel that way. Obviously, anytime anything was ever going to be turned off course from the original game, those I'm going to call them wraiths, came in and tried to stop it and get them back on path. The flashes of memory that Cloud would have, Aerith would have, I think even Tifa had one at one point, where it was almost like they were glimpsing something that has happened in the future
Mm-hmm.
in a reality. You know what I mean? And so, and the other thing that really gave it away for me was the fact that Zach, in a different reality, didn't die when he was supposed to. And as him and Cloud are walking back towards the town, there's a bag of chips with the dog on it, and the dog is different in that reality than the one that you're currently playing. So I'm curious as to how it all is going to really play out, but it would be interesting to see how all of these different alternate realities are going to kind of merge either into one. But that changes so much because obviously Cloud's not going to get the Buster Sword because Zach didn't die, but yet in the reality you're playing right now, he has it. So how is that all going to tie in? And then Vince, you have your own theory on what possibly would be happening.
Yes, I believe that all this game takes place in Cloud's head while he's in the live stream, and the spirits of Sephiroth and Aerith are. I'm sorry, take that back. Sephiroth being trapped in the live stream, and Aerith's spirit trying to manipulate Cloud, because whatever reason. And then the fact that when Tifa shows up and stuff and helps him out and pulls him out to find his real personality, and they get out of the live stream, you think about it. If Cloud's going to get out of the live stream, why is it Sephiroth going in there and trying to manipulate Cloud? So that way when he comes up, he's the next vessel.
That would make sense. Yeah.
So, but it makes sense that Cloud's the only one who sees any of this stuff, except for Aerith. And anybody she touches, like, they get a glimpse of what's going on. But it works in the fact that, like, if you think about it, this is all from Cloud's perspective in his head while he's in the live stream.
It could be. I'm very intrigued just growing up watching you, play that game so much, when it first came out, and that the soundtrack to Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger were such a huge impact on my life. I can recognize any of that music the minute it starts playing, and it just brings back, fond memories of growing up and stuff. But I think, obviously, I honestly feel that the remake of 7 is beautiful. The soundtrack is amazing. It's really fun just watching, like, okay, well, what's going to happen? Like, this is slightly different than, what happened in the original, because there's other characters that died in the original that now are not dead in this one. So it's like, okay, where is this heading? What's going to be so different? Is Aerith not going to die? Or is she going to sacrifice herself anyway to make sure that what happened in that game still continues to happen? So they just need to hurry up. Like,
Well, that's the downside of this. When you don't even get half of disc 1 on your first game that comes out, people are like, well, what else is going to happen? And then they give you this big cliffhanger of like, oh yeah, Zephyr's going to like pull his Advent Children fight at the end of the game here, and it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely fun. I think when I was watching Brock play this version, I first off, let's get out. I used to play video games when I was younger until Wild Arms came out. I know I'm getting off topic, but that is the game that made me stop playing video games. And the reason why is me and my brother were playing it together. He had his save and I had mine. I got halfway through the game and there's a gem, some kind of stone that you need to progress in the game. I didn't realize I needed that, and I think I sold it earlier on in the game. And then my brother was like, nah, you're gonna have to like go back and start this whole game over. And then I was just like rage quit the game. I was like, I'm not playing this anymore. So that's the reason why I'm just like, I will watch, but I'm not playing anymore because I got so angry about having to restart. But watching him play all of this stuff, and it's great. Like we played it through the first time and he was like, okay, I'm good. I don't know if I want to go back and replay this, because we questioned its replayability. But now that it's been so long since I've watched him play it, I'm like, I kind of play it. Like, we're done with Assassin's Creed right now. I need you to get on Final Fantasy now, because I need my fix again. So
Where's it at?
Assassin's Creed and Valhalla, but we have all of them. I know. I kind of torture my fiance over here. He's I think one point I made him play all of the Tomb Raider remakes, and he's just sitting there in his chair and he's like, I'm tired. I'm like, keep playing.
I want to know how it ends.
Yeah.
Just go watch somebody play it on YouTube.
It's not the same though. I enjoy watching my family and friends play, but I think I'm a little when it comes to making them play games when they're tired, and I need to work on that.
Well, so the funny story for me about Final Fantasy VII, and you talking about a game causing you to rage quit, I've only had that happen to me twice, and both of them were on the original PlayStation. One of them was Final Fantasy VII, where I had, for Final Fantasy 11, you got the little internal hard drive that you could install on the PlayStation 2. You had to download all that crap too. So I kind of started using that as my memory card. And so Final Fantasy 7, I finally got it. I was playing on the PS2 because I didn't have a PS1. And I got all the way through it. I got everything in that game. I unlocked everything. I got every single, ultimate weapon. I got all the materia mastered out. I had, multiple things of Knights of the Round. I had the gold chocobo, everything. I get up. All I had to do was go fight Sephiroth. That's all I had left to do. I had like 400 hours sunk into that stupid game. And then I went off, started playing some other games, came back to it, and I realized, you know what? I haven't beat 7 yet. I need to go back and beat that game. I go in, sit down, turn on the game, go to load it up, data corrupted. Like, you got to be kidding me. Go into my hard drive, try to load in, my previous save file, data corrupted. All of it was corrupt. I was like, I'm done. So I actually never beat Final Fantasy VII until a year or two ago, whenever it came out on the PS4 and it was the PC version. And I was like, look, for anybody out there who wants to judge me for beating this thing with cheats, y'all can go to hell, because I beat that game other than fighting Sephiroth. So I turned on every cheat I could for the PC version and blew through that game as fast as I could, got to the Sephiroth fight, turned off all the cheats and beat it legit. But that one happened to me. And then Legend of Dragoon, there's a point where you get through in that game and it's like you go through a door to go fight the final boss and there's a save point. If you save at that moment, you can never go back. And if your characters aren't the right setup or at the right level, you're screwed. And that's what happened to me. Like, I had been using this one set of team, like this one team got into that final fight. I couldn't get through the first phase of that stupid boss and just kept getting destroyed. And I was like, oh, then I'll just go back and level up my characters and do some other things. And I went and I checked my save file I had one save file. That was my fault. And that one save file was right before the final boss. I was like, I'm done with this game. And that's one I've never gone back and completely beaten, which I feel bad about because it's a great game. It's just, God, there's a lot of time. You got to sink into that. And I've got it on the PlayStation 3 now. It's just now because, whenever they put all these old games on the new systems, the timing, there's that input delay on the screen. So like Final Fantasy X, whenever I went back, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get Lulu's weapon. I can do that. That's real easy. Just got to dodge all the lightning bolts. Nope, because that stupid input lag, I couldn't do it. So I finally had to go and figure out a workaround, a way that you can just trigger the lightning bolt basically on command, and I was finally able to do it. But yeah, so that was, I'm sorry, went way off into a rabbit hole on the other side of the world for all that. But Final Fantasy VII, the remake, it's like, I think I had read somewhere where they had talked about how like all those ghosts and everything were kind of them building in like the audience expectation, and sort of that was them physically showing what the expectation of people were and how they were kind of breaking out of that mold. So, I haven't really given a whole lot of breakdown thought on, where I think it's going. I'm definitely curious how they're going to start merging these obvious multiverse references together, because I would have to, at this point, I'm expecting in the new game to play Zack, right? But I'm not expecting to play Zack in Midgard, because that wouldn't really make sense to go back through the Midgard story in the new game. So I'm really curious how they're going to start implementing these alternate reality kind of timelines, and how they're going to show that in this new in the new games as they move them forward, and exactly what they're going to do with it. Because kind of like with events, right? I was surprised. I got to the end of 7. I'm like, okay, here's the final boss with the big robot thing on the highway, and then we're going to go off, and it's like, wait, Sephiroth's here, and he summoned Meteor, and this is the end of the game. Like, this is the end of the entire game. What the hell is going on? And then fight's over, move on. I'm like, that was kind of weird, and okay, but it was fun. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, and I'm intrigued, and I'm curious to see where it's going to go. But it's definitely something that it's going to be an interesting way if they're going to be able to stick this landing in terms of tying all this together in a nice, neat bow kind of deal.
Yeah, and I think that if they do end up changing the reality of these games, from what we grew up playing, that I think at some point it would make sense for them to go and redo Crisis Core.
They're looking at doing that
with that alternate reality of him surviving, and how that would change so much, and that would be really cool. Was watching Brock play that one, because when it came out, it was on the PSP,
Yep.
And my ex, he played it, but it was kind of hard for me to be like, let me jump into your console while you're trying to play it and watch it. So he was able to get it downloaded on the PC, right? And you got where? The end, and it corrupted.
the end.
On an even line, and it just was like, no. So I still
can't
have been able to watch that game all the way through, somebody physically playing it. But I think out of all the Final Fantasies, besides 6, 7 is my favorite. And I know people would probably argue, oh no, I liked my fiance just said no, 12, just to make me mad.
Anyway, that's just some stuff. So yeah, just a funny note on the fact of what David said. So I had been waiting for 7 to come out for a long time. Back when I first started seeing pictures of it, and EGM and the other gaming magazines, I was drawing like Cloud and all the characters. And then when it finally came out, I played through it and was at the end of the game with most of everything within. And I had, and I'm not trying to brag, no, but I know I did it, and I was like, I just couldn't stop playing it. Dad was like, all right, son, it's like 10 o'clock. You've got 15 minutes. Let me get to a save point, Dad. And I remember like saving, turning it off, going to school, and like just eat, sleep. And how I passed the classes when that game came out, I have no clue. For that
Yeah, you were obsessed.
couple semesters. But when I got to Sephiroth, I could get to his second form or the third form. I couldn't beat it. So I was like, okay, well, let me look and see what I need to do. And I found that there was a couple mega elixirs I can get. That's all I needed, something to keep my health going while I was beating. And I saved it, turned it off. So here's the funny story about this. When we got our PlayStation, we couldn't find the original PlayStation memory card. We had to go find a Mad Cat one. It was the only one we could find. And we had some trouble with it so often, but I literally saved my game and then came back from school and my game was corrupted. So same thing, David, same thing. Game was corrupted. So, and I went and I said, screw this. So I went and found a Sony memory card from somewhere. I don't know if it was Best Buy or Funko Land or EB Games. And then I came home, started again, put on my Game Genie, leveled my characters up, and just blasted the game. But I've beaten that game so many times. I know how to break it, but I don't try to speedrun it. I just try to do it. I mean, I can get like my characters, with all the gimmicks and things that you can do in the game, and I love it. I love the game, but yeah, it was frustrating. It was super frustrating losing all that work I did. And I remember I was talking to my friend in class. I was like, "Hey, I'm at this point," and I was talking to my buddy Edward, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm right there too." And what I found out, he was in the stage of Sephiroth right before the one I was at, so he hadn't got to the One Wing Angel part. So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll figure this out." And then I called him. I told him what happened. He's like, "You got to be kidding me!" He was freaking out. And like my buddy Jonathan Cutshaw was freaking out. I was like, "What? How did that happen?" But yeah, Seven's one of those games I just came out at the perfect time for me. Characters, the music, being somebody who loves Chrono Trigger, that's my favorite game of all time, and loving Six, and I got into RPGs because of role playing with my dad, and I needed more fix for that. I mean, I love that whole process. I love leveling up. I love the story. That's why I got into RPGs. It's heavily a video game. So, but
And then Resident Evil happened.
yeah, Resident Evil, and there's so many games we can talk about. And eventually, when Andrew's ready and being able to get him on here, I'd like to talk about Resident Evil with him and Dad, and stuff. So.
And then I can show off my living room at some point to you guys because, well, the entryway to my house is Resident Evil 1 themed. So it's a wood floor. There's a big rug, like a really nice intricate rug as you walk in. There's the grandfather clock in there. There's the mansion map. I've got a Resident Evil. It says Resident Evil Welcome Home. And it's got the umbrella symbol, and then it's got the black outline of the mansion. There's a crow in there. And then we have the Resident Evil 2, the RPD map. And then we also have, for Resident Evil 3, we have Raccoon City map. So my entire entryway, I told Brock when we moved in here, and I was like, I am in charge of decorating this entryway. We even got our Jill and our Leon statues that we got from the what are they called? Well, that's the remakes, but it was the what? Collector's editions. You don't have to be so shy, man. He's like collector's edition. Yes, it was when we bought the game, and you could get like everything. It came with the map, and it came with all of that. And apparently, Chris is on his way, but I'm a little disappointed that it's not Chris from 1. It's gonna be the statue of Chris for 8. Which,
Yeah.
It looks good. I watched him play the demo, and I have to say that demo was more Resident Evil than Resident Evil 7 was. So I'm hoping that they're actually going to put some of the sound effects, the way things look when you find an item and you explore and it goes into your storage and whatnot. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a whole other episode. We'll have to talk about that because I like to express my feelings on where I think the is going.
Gotcha. We need to do a Resident Evil episode for
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we can wrap this up. I think we're just about close to an hour. 100% sure. I'll have to look when I start encoding this. But everyone, thanks for listening. More of this is basically what we're going to do with the show. I want to just talk about old times, talk about our kids, how things are going. I want to keep a log. I didn't get to finish this outro beforehand with the last episode because everything just kind of it cut off before we could finish. But my idea for this show is kind of like to build a time capsule for my kids and my friends' kids and family, so they have a record of me and the experiences we had and the good times. And as they get older, bringing them in onto this, so they have something they can share themselves. So, David, you want to say anything before we go out?
I mean, I'm don't really have too much to add on to that. I mean, yeah, it's just something that you don't really think about too much, I guess, until most people don't really think about until you get further down the line about what your kids think about, how much of you they actually know, right, and what all you've experienced and dealt with. So yeah, it's neat to be able to put something together to share with them for that kind of stuff. And yeah, we'll definitely have to start getting them in because they've got some interesting personalities of their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Amber, thank you for filling in, and you're welcome on the show anytime. But
I'd love to be more part of the show. When you guys are recording, just let me know when, and I'll make sure that those are days that I'm off. Obviously, I don't want to be on every one of them, but I'd love to, occasionally pop in and say hi and be a part of those conversations. It just kind of reminds me of us getting, together like we used to before COVID happened. We just have these hour-long, sometimes throughout the night conversations of just what we went through when we were kids and experiences together and just the shenanigans that we used to do. We always used to say that we should have had a TV show, a sitcom based on our life, because some of it was cray-cray.
But
thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and gals and everyone. We will try to record again next week. I'll try to get this up either today or on Monday. So we recorded on Sunday. Yeah, everyone have a good one. Stay safe.
Stay nerdy.